WWT presents Meet the Chief.
Hi, I'm Tracy Sever. I lead global cyber strategy and go-to-market here at WWT. And thank you so much for joining another episode of Meet the Chief. We have an amazing guest today. We have James Winebrenner, who's the CEO of Elisity. And these guys are doing something really cool in the market today. So they redefine network security with an identity-based microsegmentation approach, which we know is critical for so many of our customers as they strategically define what their architectures look like. They work across a number of verticals: life sciences, clinical healthcare, oil and gas, and manufacturing, to secure critical infrastructure and meet compliance objectives. So James has had a super impressive career, previously in executive leadership at companies like Aviatrix and Cisco, and actually built the global go-to-market for the SDN company Viptela, which was acquired by Cisco back in 2017. So James, you've got over 25 years of experience in cybersecurity and infrastructure, which is just brings such a wealth of just knowledge and experience to your customers. And then started at one of the more backbone companies of the cybersecurity industry, Checkpoint, at the beginning of your career. So welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Tracy, it's great to be here. It's great to be partnered with WWT and get to share a little bit more about what we're doing with Elisity today.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're excited to have you on. Especially, when we look at where we're at today, not only in the cybersecurity industry, but just across technology as a whole. We're seeing that the stakes are just materially higher than ever before across all different types of industries and the challenges that they're dealing with. And we're seeing with our customers that AI, it's not just a buzzword. We actually talk about it every episode, because it really shapes and changes how we respond to threats, and then the threats that are coming at us, and they're really amplifying that for our customers. So you're obviously really close to so many of those conversations in what you guys are doing over at Elisity, and understanding the executives and board prioritization. Can you share with us a little bit about what you're seeing around AI and the amplification of those risks, and how you guys are helping customers respond to it?
Absolutely, and I think you're exactly right. The stakes have never been higher, and if you think about the implications of AI in most of the customers that we work with, it's all dependent upon the underlying data set that those customers have, and we're really focused on helping them protect the availability of that data and protect that data. I think if you look at all of the news that's been around just on the amount of ransomware, we talk a lot about the availability of data, or the availability of a manufacturing process, or the availability of being able to serve in a clinical healthcare setting. But we often don't think about the fact that in many of these attack scenarios, the threat actors actually have access to the data in some cases for days before the ransomware incident, and that data is exfiltrated and then can be used later, for further extortion, et cetera. And so being able to really look at how we protect both the systems, the processes, and the data that underpin what a lot of our customers are trying to do with those AI transformations is very, very important, and is a core part of what we're doing at Elisity.
Yeah, James, I know we've seen a lot of use cases around life sciences, but we've also seen an uptick in clinical healthcare. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We were building during COVID and working again with a lot of folks that had to keep their manufacturing processes, up and running while everybody else was working from home and nobody was in an enterprise carpeted space. We still had to, make vaccines and build things. But we also saw a massive uptick in threat actor activity focusing on clinical healthcare settings with ransomware. And it was really a perfect storm of, an overworked, overburdened hospital system, then having to deal with, on top of that, ransomware that was impacting their ability to deliver patient care. And unfortunately, these clinical healthcare networks are, largely unsegmented. They're largely flat. It's very difficult to kind of, again, go back and chase, these different devices around, trying to make sure they're mapped to the right VLAN. And one of the things that we saw is, in many cases, providers were just paying the claim. They're paying the ransom and then filing a claim with their cyber risk insurers. And fast forward a year or two, and we saw a lot of the insurance companies come back and say, hey, we're not going to be able to continue to do this. Your premiums are going to start going up dramatically unless you can demonstrate material progress towards segmenting your clinical devices away from the rest of the IT network. And again, this is not something where we can shut a hospital down and rebuild the network to do this. So we looked at this use case, going back to 2021 and started, again, partnering with a design partner, Bupa Healthcare in the UK. How can we go and help solve this problem in these environments where we've got tons of IT assets that are managed, we've got tons of IOMT assets or medical devices that are frankly unmanaged, and when there is a vulnerability, can't be patched. The patches have to go through an FDA approval cycle, so that the fastest that could happen is 9 months. But how do we, with a very small team, without the operational rigor to go and kind of chase these things around and try and mitigate those risks? How do we identify where those things are and very easily make them be able to map them into a least privilege access policy and kind of segment in place? So we've seen a dramatic uptake in that use case, and now that's actually been mandated as part of Health and Human Services 405D for hospitals and clinical settings of a certain size to be able to provide that level of segmentation for their clinical devices. So another place where we're seeing pretty significant customer uptake, and it's great to be able to go solve that problem in a way that doesn't require this sort of dramatic rip and replace.
Yeah, it's I think it's very relevant for our customers, and it is like your technology is really groundbreaking. I know when we look back on years ago, the old way of buying a firewall, and having your traditional security stack, it doesn't kind of match the threat landscape that we're dealing with today. When you're talking with CISOs and really helping them kind of reposition and reimagine, their architectures, can you talk to us a little bit about the advice that you're giving, and then in context to the challenges that they're facing?
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, I was privileged enough to start my career 25 plus years ago. Back before we called it cyber, it was just security with Checkpoint software. Yeah. And so having been around kind of the commercialization of stateful inspection firewall technology, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's in some ways, it's kind of terrifying how little has changed. We still see customers trying to accomplish segmentation and trying to accomplish further isolation of different processes and different data sets, et cetera, with frankly a legacy approach: buy more firewalls. And what we're seeing is while firewalls are certainly an effective control, the operational complexity associated with continuing to try and carve the network up into ever smaller and smaller segments with really what was intended to be a perimeter security control. Customers are they're throwing their hands up. It's not even about the money of making the acquisition of those firewall controls. It's really the operational complexity of being able to go into environments and support those changes. We have a large pharmaceutical manufacturing customer that had in the wake of what happened with Merck and the challenges they ran into with NotPetya back in 2017. They kicked off a segmentation project, again, traditional approach, VLANs and firewalls. And the CISO looked at it after about 9 months and realized they really weren't making any progress. It was going to take 6 years and 3,500 change control windows to get through the implementation of a $200 million segmentation project. So you think about from the board's perspective, they're saying, hey, we approved the funding here, we've mitigated the risk. And then the reality is just the operational complexity of going and disrupting the business and going through those change windows. So there absolutely needs to be a new approach. And that operational complexity is, again, as a result of sort of the way we've been doing things as an industry for the last couple of decades. And at Elisity, we really believe that there was an opportunity to kind of reinvent that and rethink the control relative to the policy. And that's really what we're focused on doing. We want to be able to take all of the identity and context of the users, the devices, and the workloads that run in our customers' environments, and abstract that from the underlying network constructs. We don't care what VLAN or subnet something is on, but really map the identity and context back to a true least privilege access policy, and then be able to instantiate that policy wherever that user, that device, or workload is in the network, without having to go through. And as one of my favorite customer quotes says, I have to go through with pickaxes and shovels trying to carve the network up into ever smaller and smaller segments.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great analogy. And I know you were talking about a specific customer here, and it sounds like they're taking a very innovative approach. Working closely with you and with WWT as well. Are there any kind of lessons learned with this customer that you'd like to share, and kind of how they looked at things a little bit differently and were able to start making such a bold transition?
Yeah, I will say, having built a couple of companies, the critical ingredient is having good design partners early on. We can sit in a room on a whiteboard and map out ideas, but being able to really validate that against real customer requirements and go through that iterative process is key. And we were very, very lucky to have GSK as a design partner, and they really challenged us with the way we were thinking about this approach. But they challenged us on things like, what are the data sets that are important to integrate into that identity-based policy? And we looked at a couple of things. One, we know the wire doesn't lie. We can see everything that's happening on the network, but that data is not necessarily what we want to be building policy around. So how do we marry that up with other sources of identity that are present in the customer's network? And again, GSK really kind of pushed us to think about some of the other data sources that were important for them, that then became integral to the dynamic policies that we create. The second thing is really thinking about what does it mean to operationalize technology in an organization. It's not just about building a platform; it's also making sure that it can plug in and be used by the operators. And again, having good design partners really helps you keep that as a very tight iterative loop early on. So we were very lucky to have, as I mentioned, GSK as a design partner. We had Bupa Healthcare in the UK as a design partner on the clinical healthcare side. And in both cases really helped us hone not just the platform from a technology perspective, but really make sure that we were mapping to these use cases that are very, very, very relevant for the CISOs that we're working with today.
Yeah, that it is so great to have that real live feedback that's coming from someone who is building something within their organization and is responsible for it going forward after that handoff. And I think that's just truly invaluable, like an invaluable resource and design partner. So that's fantastic. When we look at GSK, they're obviously in life sciences. Can we talk about how this microsegmentation solution applies to other verticals and how they might be using it and driving value for their organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. We started with life sciences, I think, because one, we were building during COVID, and if you can imagine, there was very, very few places where it was more important to protect the availability of a manufacturing process than in vaccine production, and really the entirety of that life sciences supply chain from an R&D standpoint all the way through production. But segmentation and the importance of segmentation, this idea of least privileged access, is a very well understood control. It's just been very, very challenging to implement. I was in Baltimore 2 weeks ago, speaking with a group of about 80 CISOs, and asked the question, how many people understand kind of the importance of network segmentation, as a key NIST 800 control and a key for the security. Everybody's hand goes up. And then I said, how many people have successfully been able to deliver a segmentation project on time and under budget? Everybody's hand went down. So this is not a question of understanding that we need something new. It's trying to say, hey, how do we accomplish something that's very well understood, but do that in a way that frankly makes it manageable? And so, as I said, we started in life sciences, which was, again, great because that is a very, very complex manufacturing process. For people that are exposed to manufacturing, think about semiconductor manufacturing, where Intel's perfected this, build once, copy exactly strategy. You walk into any chip fab anywhere in the world, and it's literally down to the, where the handles are positioned on the doors to the bathroom. Everything is exactly the same. Manufacturing in life sciences is frankly very different. Every plant is kind of a snowflake. So while we started in life sciences with these manufacturing processes where every plant was kind of a unique snowflake, we were very happy to see that we could bring the same capability to what I like to call beer margin manufacturing. So things like carpet and tile or electrical connectors. Everybody is still faced with this problem of the risk of a ransomware attack, affecting the availability of the manufacturing process, or the risk of the ransomware attack in some cases having life safety implications as you think about some of the oil and gas customers that we work with. So we were very lucky to be able to start again in life sciences manufacturing, but by no means was that the only place where this the ability to bring this identity based segmentation has proven valuable.
It's such a profound, space that you guys have been working on, where, I mean, I think you just called it out there, where there's situations where people are depending on business continuity and ensuring that, operations stay up. And in some cases it is a life and death scenario. So it's a really tangible and interesting use case that you guys really address. And it's great to see how you guys have filled a much needed space in the market. What I kind of want to transition over to and kind of hear your perspective on is, the building of organizations and companies. You certainly have a startup and founder mentality, which is so critical in such a fast moving cybersecurity space, right? Because there's always gaps that need to be filled with new technologies. And you've got, a ton of experience with this in your early work at Viptela, which was eventually acquired by Cisco. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the lessons learned along your way, in being a part of the build of these organizations and really bring them to market?
Absolutely. First, I'll say it is for anybody that has built, they understand it is like alchemy, and it's such a privilege to get to take something from an idea to a concept that you're trying to prove out to minimum viable product, to watching customers kind of take that first leap of faith and make a bet on you as a company, and then frankly to see those customers really start to scale things out. There's a lot of pinch me moments that happen over the course of a year or two as you're going through that journey. And I think that once you've done it, it's very, very hard to go back into sort of a big organization where the organizational inertia makes it hard to drive that level of innovation. I think that the three biggest things that I've taken away from this, and certainly that we reinforce as we're working on continuing to build and scale Elisity, is one, as I said, the early design partners are key. And you want to make sure that you've got customers that are giving you candid feedback. You want to make sure you have customers that aren't mad scientists, that we're not building something for a customer of one, but that we're continuing to kind of vet through that process. Hey, this is what we're building for this customer, but can we kind of validate that with maybe some of their peer systems or some of their peer organizations to make sure that what we're building has broader applicability in the market. The second thing is really then being kind of disciplined around not overbuilding. Getting something out is much more important than getting it perfect. Because again, with the right design partners on the other end, they're not expecting perfect. They want to help you iterate. And as long as you have a very kind of open and honest dialogue around how to deal with bugs when they come up, how to deal with feature requests, et cetera, the speed with which you can drive that innovation is really key to being able to build something versus going off and working in a vacuum for 3 or 4 years on a special project and then trying to bring something to a market that may have completely moved on. So getting something out the door is very quick, and then is very important. And then the last thing, and I try and remind the team about this, at every opportunity, is early customers are in many cases actually betting their career on a decision to go with a startup. Everybody remembers the old saying, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. and there's reality to that, right? So when you have, somebody in an organization, in a global 2000 or Fortune 500 organization who's willing to make a bet on your technology and be that technical champion or be that executive sponsor of getting that integrated into the environment, it is in in a very real sense, they're betting their career on you. And so I don't care what the function is in the organization. It's not, sales versus customer success versus engineering. I want to make sure that everybody understands that when we talk about these customers, it's not a logo on a slide. There are, in most cases, 2 or 3 people who have literally bet their career on a decision to go with Elisity versus going to go do it the old way, which everybody understands. And if it fails, I can at least say that I wasn't taking an unnecessary risk. And I think that, and having gone through this with Viptela, where we had customers that quite literally were making a sort of a career-defining decision to go and do this new software-defined wide area network overlay and transform their operation. The sense of loyalty back to those customers as we were going through the integration into Cisco and making sure that we were continuing to be able to support those customers as they scaled was just something I really took away, and it's something we're really trying to build as a cornerstone of what we're doing here at Elisity. And we are very, very, very privileged to have, again, incredible customers, not just at the design partner stage, but now as we've been scaling and understanding that is still it's still a big step for those customers to take. So I think those are kind of the 3 takeaways I've had. Building is so much fun, and like I said, once you see that you can kind of create something out of nothing, and the excitement that the customers have for being able to be a part of that, it's hard to go back.
I love that. That's such a collaborative approach to building. And I think, those who are part of that design team feel a sense of ownership for the success of the organization because they've got their fingerprints all over it. And I think for you guys culturally, I think it's humbling and grounding to have everything based in the fact that they're putting their trust in you to bring them a product that's going to really do what it says it's going to do, and it's going to help them with their goals and support that culture of innovation for their organization. So that's just incredibly powerful, and I love that approach to partnership and to startups. So that's very cool. Kind of changing gears a little bit, James, just to give our viewers a chance to get to know you a little bit better as a person. Can you share with us, some of the things that get you excited outside of work, that you're passionate about, and that you're able to put? I'm sure you don't have a lot of spare time, but that you're able to put any of your spare time into, and that are meaningful for you.
Yeah, I'm a geek at heart, so I love technology, and it's fun to get to work with people that are literally at the cutting edge of driving technical innovation every day. But I've had to learn how to balance that with being able to take some time to think. So everybody that's on my team knows I'm a huge fan of cycling. I kind of found cycling, late. I wasn't not an athlete back in high school, and I kind of was lucky enough to find cycling, and it's an incredible, really life sport. I will ride anything with 2 wheels: mountain bikes, road bikes, gravel bikes, and I like to be able to put at least 1 or 2 events on the calendar each year just to have a goal to kind of make sure that I'm training for something. And it's not about racing other people at this point. It's just about trying to make sure that I'm continuing to stay in shape and trying to continue to beat myself. But it's awesome, and it gives me an opportunity to get outside, get fresh air, clear my head. I love being able to listen to podcasts and audiobooks, when I'm out on long rides, and it's a huge way for me to get recharged. So every once in a while, somebody from my team will say, "Hey, you need to take an hour and go for a bike ride." And I know that means that I'm probably getting to be a little bit too much to handle. But no, that's been huge for me. And honestly, I've had an opportunity to help coach a high school mountain bike league, which I think, again, if that had been around when I was a kid, would have been amazing. But to see, kids that maybe they don't want to play football, maybe they don't want to play, lacrosse, be able to embrace something that then they can carry on, and again, have a, awesome life sport. It's been really, really impactful to be able to be a part of that.
That's awesome. That is so great. And it is, it's like we talk about it so often in our industry because burnout is a real thing. And I think there's so many elements to just our physical and mental health, and making time for yourself to do something that's good for your body is amazing. And then also sharing that with maybe a younger generation where, they, like you said, they're not maybe interested in traditional, team sports. It's something that's wonderful and they can do forever. My question for you there, what's your favorite place that you've ever done mountain biking?
I had an opportunity. After Vitello was acquired by Cisco to go do kind of a bucket list mountain bike race in Cape Town, South Africa, called Cape Epic. And I'd had this. I'd been paying attention to it for a long time, and one of our business partners was a sponsor. And when finally I had a little bit of time to be able to go and spend a week in South Africa, it was awesome to get to go and race in that venue. And that's probably my favorite mountain bike race. And then there's a little tiny village in Tuscany called Lecce in Chianti, 74 people, two churches. But they have an amazing bed and breakfast, and I try and get there. And the road cycling around there, there's these beautiful white roads, Strada Bianchi, and that's another place that I love to go and just get out on a road bike for 2 or 3 hours and kind of clear my head, come back, and you forget kind of where you are. It's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, that's so great. That's awesome. Yeah, Italy is beautiful. And Cape Town sounds like that was an amazing adventure. So awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And, before we kind of close out our session today, I kind of want to bring it back to some of the more strategic conversations that you're having, and just, create some food for thought for our listeners and viewers. What are you seeing, today in the market that you feel like is game changing, and that you think that the CISOs in the organizations that we all support should really be prioritizing for 2024 and 2025?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, one of the most interesting trends that I'm seeing is, the CISOs having, clearly they have accountability for the security of the organization, and for being able to really be board relevant around that security conversation, not as hey, all my peers are doing it, therefore we need to do it, but really, show up and have a risk-based approach, right? How do we mitigate risk where necessary, and what are those risks, and be able to weigh those just like every other business risk that companies have to deal with every day. And where I've seen the CISOs that have been able to successfully have that conversation, the trend that I'm seeing is more and more they're actually being given responsibility over not just the security organization from a kind of policy and governance perspective, but frankly getting a lot more of the infrastructure responsibility as well. So what we traditionally think of as the network or the hosting infrastructure, parts of kind of the CIO org, in many cases are starting to move into the CISO's organization, and the CIO is sort of moving towards more of a chief digital officer, focusing on the digital transformation of the business, application development, et cetera. So that is a trend. We're seeing this, not just in pharma. We're seeing this in a number of other financial services customers, and I think we've got a couple meetings actually at RSA that we're talking about this trend. But it really is. It's really tied to the CISOs being able to show up and say, hey, these are the risks. We can deal with those in a quantified fashion, and then here operationally, this is what we have to do to be able to go and support that decision. And so we're excited to be partnered with some incredible customers that have gone through that transition already, and I've talked to a few folks that are sort of on the cusp of that as something for FY25.
That is, it's funny that you say that. I had that very conversation today. And we're seeing that across the board in so many organizations where they're trying to remove these silos and bring teams that were, formerly disparate together, to get that holistic viewpoint. Because truly, when our customers and, clients and the people that we partner with, when they're not working together and sharing information and looking at it as a big picture, that's really where those gaps arise. And it's so important for them to share that kind of information. So thank you so much, James, for the insight. And thank you so much for being on the show today. It was great giving everyone a chance to get to know you a little better as a person, and also for them to understand what Elisity brings to the market and all the value that you guys are driving.
Well, thank you, Tracy. It's been great to be a guest of the show, and it's great to be a partner of WWT. We're really excited to build on all the success that we've had together thus far, and see much more for our mutual customers moving forward.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you again so much. And thanks for tuning into this episode of Meet the Chief.